A study led by Richard West and Keith Stanovich suggests that in many instances, smarter people are more vulnerable to thinking errors and cognitive biases. This seems counterintuitive, as we often assume intelligence protects against bias. The study found that those with higher SAT scores and a tendency to enjoy thinking were slightly more prone to common mental mistakes. When facing uncertain situations, people often rely on mental shortcuts that lead to foolish decisions, rather than carefully evaluating information. These shortcuts allow people to skip the math and jump to conclusions that require the least mental effort. Interestingly, even self-awareness of one's biases doesn't necessarily help overcome them. The study also found that people naturally assume others are more susceptible to thinking errors than themselves, a tendency known as the bias blind spot. Surprisingly, this bias blind spot was more pronounced among those who scored higher on measures of cognitive sophistication. One possible explanation is that when evaluating others, we rely on observable behavior, but when assessing ourselves, we engage in introspection, which can blind us to the unconscious forces driving our biases. Introspection may actually compound errors, as the root causes of our irrationality are largely hidden from self-analysis and unaffected by intelligence. The more we attempt to understand ourselves through introspection, the less we may actually grasp the true reasons behind our cognitive failings. These findings challenge the assumption that intelligence and education are foolproof safeguards against irrational thinking and decision-making. In Phaedo, a text by ancient Greek philosopher Plato, Socrates describes the earth as appearing like a colorful ball when seen from above, divided into patches of various colors brighter and purer than those seen on the ground. Some interpret this passage as evidence that Socrates may have actually seen the earth from orbit or had access to records from a civilization capable of ancient spaceflight. However, by Socrates' time, the idea of a spherical Earth was already accepted by many educated Greeks engaging in philosophy. The ancient Greek philosophers, starting with Thales, sought to understand the cosmos using natural explanations based on their experience of nature, rather than solely invoking gods or mythology. This approach led to advancements in natural sciences and engineering, such as the development of steam-powered devices, analog robots, and the understanding that intelligence is seated in the head. Parmenides and the Pythagorean school, including Philolaus, a contemporary of Socrates, argued for a spherical Earth, with Philolaus even suggesting that the Earth moved and was not at the center of the universe. Plato, Socrates' most notable student, also believed in a spherical Earth, and may have been a proponent of Philolaus's cosmological ideas. While it's possible that Socrates' description could be evidence of ancient Greeks having first-hand knowledge of Earth's appearance from space, this view is not necessarily required based on the passage alone. Occam's razor suggests that, given the lack of undeniable evidence for any ancient civilization being capable of spaceflight, it's more likely that Socrates' description was an educated guess based on the assumed spherical shape of the Earth. The passage, while intriguing, does not provide conclusive proof of ancient spaceflight, as the Greeks' understanding of Earth's shape and their ability to imagine its appearance from a great height could account for Socrates' description. Telescope images from the Solar Dynamics Observatory captured what appears to be a planet-sized shadowy object tethered to the sun by a dark filament. In the images, a burst of bright material can be seen erupting from the sun's surface around the dark object, after which it detaches and shoots out into space. The footage has garnered attention on YouTube, with viewers suggesting it shows a UFO spacecraft refueling by sucking up solar plasma or the birth of a new planet. However, NASA scientists explain that the feature is actually a type of solar activity called a prominence, which is a large, cool, dense plasma structure that extends outward from the sun's surface. Prominences can loop thousands of miles into space and persist for weeks or months. The dark appearance of the prominence is due to it absorbing light at a specific wavelength emitted by ionized iron atoms. A NASA solar astrophysicist explained that the prominence is situated below a tunnel-shaped feature called a filament channel, which gives it a spherical appearance when viewed from the edge of the Sun. The burst of activity seen in the images was likely a coronal mass ejection, a disruption in the Sun's magnetic field that can cause prominence eruptions. While the images may seem extraordinary, scientists emphasize that the development of these structures is quite common and well understood within the field of solar physics. Despite the excitement generated by the unique appearance of this solar event, it remains a naturally occurring phenomenon rather than evidence of extraterrestrial activity or planetary formation. Solar sails are a method of spacecraft propulsion that uses radiation pressure exerted by sunlight on large surfaces to generate thrust. The concept has been proposed since the 1980s, but the first practical solar sail spacecraft, Icaros, was launched by Japan in 2010. Solar sails offer the potential for low-cost, long-duration missions with minimal use of propellant. They work by harnessing the tiny amount of momentum carried by photons of sunlight, which exert a small but continuous force on the reflective sail surface. Over time, this constant pressure can accelerate a spacecraft to high speeds without the need for heavy and expensive propellant. Solar sails are typically made of thin, lightweight, and highly reflective materials, like aluminized polymer films. Attitude control is achieved by adjusting the angle of the sail relative to the Sun, allowing the spacecraft to spiral inwards or outwards from the Sun, or change its orbital inclination. Potential applications include cargo transport within the inner solar system, solar polar orbiter missions, and even interstellar travel using laser-powered sails. Various configurations have been proposed, including square sails, spinning disk sails, and heliogyro designs that use long, rotating blades. Challenges include the need for large sail areas, precise attitude control, and the management of sail temperature and degradation over time. Despite some failures, interest in solar sail technology remains high, with several missions either completed or in development by space agencies and private organizations worldwide. The technology continues to advance, with the promise of enabling new types of space missions and reducing the cost of spacecraft propulsion in the future. A wide range of fascinating optical phenomena can be observed when light interacts with matter, from the everyday sight of a rainbow to rare and seemingly mythical events like the green ray. These phenomena are caused by the optical properties of Earth's atmosphere, natural and human-made objects, and even the human eye itself. Some optical phenomena, such as the colors produced by a prism, are simply interesting demonstrations of the basic principles of optics, while others arise from the wave or particle nature of light. Atmospheric optical phenomena are often the result of light from the sun or moon interacting with the atmosphere, clouds, water droplets, dust, and other particulates suspended in the air. One of the most spectacular atmospheric optical phenomena is the Fata Morgana, a type of mirage that can make distant objects appear to be floating above the horizon or even inverted, and is commonly seen in favored locations around the world. Other atmospheric phenomena include sundogs, light pillars, and glories, all caused by the interaction of light with ice crystals in the atmosphere. Optical phenomena can also be observed in the natural world beyond the atmosphere, such as the iridescent colors seen in certain bird feathers, insect wings, and seashells, which are caused by the interference of light waves. Some optical effects are human-made, such as the shimmering colors seen in a soap bubble or the shifting colors of a hologram. The human eye itself can also produce optical phenomena, known as entoptic phenomena, which include floaters, phosphenes, and the autokinetic effect. Some optical phenomena are so rare or difficult to explain that they remain the subject of ongoing scientific research and debate, such as ball lightning and the mysterious Marfa lights of Texas. In some cases, optical illusions can be mistaken for genuine optical phenomena, but these illusions have explanations rooted in the workings of the human brain rather than the properties of light itself. precise scientific instruments have allowed researchers to observe and measure subtle optical phenomena that demonstrate fundamental properties of the universe, such as the bending of starlight by the sun during a solar eclipse, which provided evidence for Einstein's theory of relativity and the curvature of space-time. Solipsism is the philosophical idea that only one's own mind is certain to exist, holding that knowledge of anything outside one's own mind is unsure, and that the external world and other minds cannot be known and might not exist outside the mind. Metaphysical solipsists maintain that the self is the only existing reality, and that all other realities, including the external world and other persons, are representations of that self, having no independent existence. Epistemological solipsism, on the other hand, holds that only the directly accessible mental contents of the solipsistic philosopher can be known, regarding the existence of an external world as an unresolvable question rather than actually false. Methodological solipsism is an agnostic variant that emphasizes the idea that subjective impressions or innate knowledge are the sole possible or proper starting point for philosophical construction, often used as a thought experiment to assist skepticism rather than as a belief system. The concept of solipsism is related to three widely held philosophical presuppositions: that one's most certain knowledge is the content of one's own mind, that there is no logically necessary link between mental and physical, and that the experience of a given person is necessarily private to that person. Solipsism has its origins in ancient Greek philosophy, with the pre-Socratic sophist Gorgias being one of the first to express the idea that nothing exists, that even if something exists, nothing can be known about it, and that even if something can be known, it cannot be communicated to others. The foundations of solipsism are closely tied to the view that an individual's understanding of psychological concepts is accomplished by making an analogy with their own mental states, a perspective that has been influential in philosophy since Descartes. George Berkeley's arguments against materialism and in favor of idealism provide additional support for solipsism, as he denies the existence of matter but not minds, of which God is one. Solipsism is a form of logical minimalism, asserting that the non-existence of the external world cannot be proven, but that a solid proof of its existence is also unavailable. Some developmental psychologists believe that infants are solipsistic, and eventually infer that others have experiences similar to their own, rejecting solipsism as they grow and develop. In Hinduism, the Advaita Vedanta school of thought presents ideas similar to solipsism, holding that the mind is the only true reality, and that the universe and the self are one and the same. Buddhism challenges the idea of an objective reality independent of individual perceiving minds, with some interpretations asserting that external reality is an illusion, though this position is not necessarily equivalent to metaphysical solipsism. Despite its long history and philosophical significance, solipsism has been criticized by many famous philosophers, with some arguing that it is psychologically impossible to believe or that it leads to logical inconsistencies. Sonification is a fascinating process that involves using non-speech audio to convey information or represent data in a unique way. By translating data into sound, sonification offers an alternative or complement to traditional visualization techniques, taking advantage of the human auditory system's ability to discern subtle changes in pitch, volume, and other properties. One of the earliest and most well-known examples of sonification is the Geiger counter, which produces clicking sounds that increase in frequency as it detects higher levels of radiation. Over the years, sonification has found applications in various fields, from representing scientific data like gravitational waves and DNA sequences, to assisting with navigation and medical monitoring. Different techniques can be employed in sonification, such as varying pitch, amplitude, tempo, or timbre to indicate changes in the underlying data, allowing users to perceive patterns and trends through sound. While sonification is still a relatively young field, It holds great potential for presenting complex information in an engaging and accessible manner, offering new ways to explore and understand data beyond the realm of visual representation. Sonoluminescence is a curious event where light bursts from collapsing bubbles in a liquid when exposed to sound waves. Discovered during sonar experiments in the 1930s, it occurs when a strong sound wave causes a gas-filled cavity in a liquid to collapse suddenly, releasing a flash of light. There are two types of sonoluminescence: stable single bubble and multi-bubble. Initially thought to be a result of heat, further studies showed that temperatures inside the bubbles during sonoluminescence can skyrocket to thousands of kelvins. Despite decades of study, scientists are still unsure about the exact cause of sonoluminescence. The phenomenon has sparked various theories, including hotspot and collision-induced radiation, with some even suggesting the possibility of thermonuclear fusion, although this idea is met with skepticism. Interestingly, sonoluminescence isn't confined to the laboratory. The pistol shrimp, for example, uses it as a hunting tool. By snapping its claw, the shrimp creates cavitation bubbles that emit light and stunning prey. The South Atlantic Anomaly, or SAA, is an area where Earth's inner Van Allen radiation belt dips closest to the planet's surface, reaching an altitude of just 200 kilometers, 120 miles. This phenomenon exposes orbiting satellites and spacecraft, including the International Space Station, to higher than usual levels of ionizing radiation as they pass through the region. The SAA is caused by the non-alignment of Earth's magnetic dipole with its rotational axis, resulting in a weaker magnetic field over the South Atlantic Ocean. The shape and intensity of the SAA have been changing over time, with a noticeable expansion towards the northwest, north, northeast, and east since its discovery in 1958. Satellites and spacecraft passing through the SAA can experience temporary malfunctions, false alarms, and even permanent damage due to the increased radiation exposure. Astronauts have reported seeing peculiar shooting stars in their visual field while passing through the SAA, an effect known as cosmic ray visual phenomena. The SAA is believed to be caused by a large reservoir of dense rock inside the Earth called the African Large Low Shear Velocity Province, which affects the planet's magnetic field in this region. In 1991, a sphere-shaped UFO reportedly landed in Russia and spewed spheres that grew bigger and exploded by flaming up with an extremely bright light, after which nearby soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles, according to a top-secret Russian scientific research institution near Moscow. The KGB materials state that the remains of the UFO and petrified soldiers were transferred to the research institution for study. Specialists assume that a source of energy that is still unknown to Earthlings instantly changed the structure of the soldiers' living tissues, having transformed them into a substance whose molecular composition is no different from that of limestone. A CIA representative stated, "If the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing case." The idea of a flat Earth has been around since ancient times, with many early cultures subscribing to a flat Earth cosmography, including the ancient Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Chinese. The concept of a spherical Earth first appeared in ancient Greek philosophy with Pythagoras in the 6th century BC, and by the 4th century BC, Aristotle had provided strong empirical evidence for a spherical Earth. Despite the growing acceptance of a spherical Earth among scholars, the flat Earth belief persisted in various cultures, including in Christian theology, where some early church fathers like Lactantius ridiculed the notion of a spherical Earth. During the Middle Ages, while most scholars accepted the sphericity of the Earth, there were still some who held on to the flat Earth belief, such as Cosmas Indicopleustes, who described the Earth as a flat rectangle enclosed by 4 walls supporting the firmament. The myth that people in the Middle Ages widely believed in a flat Earth was popularized in the 19th century by writers like Washington Irving and Andrew Dixon White, who used it to support the idea of a conflict between science and religion. In the modern era, the belief in a flat Earth was revived by Samuel Rowbotham in 1849, and later promoted by the Flat Earth Society, founded by Samuel Shenton in 1956. The rise of the internet and social media has made it easier for individuals to spread information and attract others to the flat Earth belief, with adherents often embracing conspiracy theories to explain why governments, scientists, and other organizations accept a spherical Earth. Spiral dynamics is a model that describes the evolutionary development of individuals, organizations, and societies based on the idea that different value systems and worldviews emerge in response to life conditions. The model was initially developed by Don Beck and Christopher Cowan, building upon the work of psychologist Clare Graves, and later incorporated elements of Ken Wilber's integral theory. Spiral dynamics uses a color coding system to represent different stages or memes of development, with each stage building upon the previous one and offering a more complex and comprehensive perspective. The stages move from more primitive and survival-oriented worldviews to more complex, individualistic, and eventually integrative and holistic perspectives. Spiral dynamics has been applied in various fields, including business management, organizational development, education, and personal growth, as a framework for understanding and working with different value systems and perspectives. While spiral dynamics has influenced various theories and practices, it has also faced criticism for its lack of mainstream academic support, the potential for misuse, and the challenges of accurately measuring and categorizing complex human development. Despite these criticisms, spiral dynamics continues to be explored and applied by practitioners and researchers interested in understanding the evolution of human consciousness and fostering more effective communication and collaboration across different worldviews. Spontaneous human combustion, or SHC, is a controversial and largely unexplained phenomenon, where a human body allegedly catches fire and burns without an apparent external source of ignition. Cases of SHC often involve elderly or sedentary individuals, and the body is usually found partially or completely burned, with nearby objects relatively untouched by the fire. Some common characteristics of reported SHC cases include the victim being an alcoholic, the hands and feet often falling off, and the body leaving behind greasy ashes with a strong, unpleasant odor. While the scientific community largely dismisses SHC as a myth, some researchers have proposed theories such as the wick effect, where a small external flame ignites the victim's clothing, leading to a slow, sustained combustion fueled by the body's fat. Other proposed explanations for SHC include the buildup of flammable gases within the body, ball lightning, or even paranormal activity. Despite the lack of scientific evidence supporting SHC, the concept has captured the public's imagination and has been featured in various works of literature, television shows, and movies. Notable alleged cases of SHC include Mary Reeser, a 67-year-old woman from Florida who was found burned to ashes in 1951, and Michael Faherty, a 76-year-old man from Ireland whose death was officially attributed to SHC by a coroner in 2010. Spontaneous remission, also known as spontaneous healing or spontaneous regression, refers to the unexpected improvement or cure from a disease that typically progresses, especially in cases of cancer. In simple terms, spontaneous remission from cancer is when a malignant tumor partially or completely disappears without any treatment or with treatment that is considered inadequate to influence the disease significantly. Interestingly, there are reports of cancer regression occurring after a fever brought on by infection, hinting at a potential connection between infections and spontaneous regression. However, more research is needed to confirm this relationship through epidemiological studies. Dancing mania was a bizarre phenomenon that occurred primarily in Europe between the 14th and 17th centuries, where large groups of people would spontaneously begin dancing erratically, sometimes for days or weeks on end. The earliest known outbreak occurred in the 1020s in Germany, and major outbreaks followed in the 14th and 15th centuries, with one of the most notable cases being the dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg. Participants in these dancing frenzies often appeared to be in a trance-like state, unable to control their movements, and would continue dancing until they collapsed from exhaustion, and in some cases, even died. Theories about the cause of dancing mania range from ergot poisoning and mass hysteria to cultural contagion and stress relief during times of hardship. Some researchers suggest that the dancing may have been part of religious rituals or cults, performed under the guise of uncontrollable mania to avoid persecution. In Italy, a similar phenomenon called tarantism was believed to be caused by the bite of a tarantula or scorpion, with the only cure being to dance to specific music. Though the exact cause remains unknown, dancing mania is considered one of the earliest recorded instances of mass hysteria, showcasing the power of social contagion and the human mind's response to stressful and uncertain times. In a groundbreaking study, researchers from Osaka University have successfully reconstructed high-resolution images by reading human brain waves using a technique called stable diffusion, without the need for complex training or fine-tuning of deep generative models. By analyzing brain activity captured through functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, the researchers were able to generate images with a resolution of 512 by 512 pixels, a significant improvement over previous attempts that only achieved 256 pixel resolution. The reconstructed images displayed remarkable semantic fidelity, closely resembling the original images shown to the participants during the fMRI scans. This breakthrough in translating brainwaves into visual representations could have far-reaching implications, particularly in the field of accessibility, potentially enabling nonverbal or paralyzed individuals to communicate their thoughts and inner worlds more effectively. While the idea of using AI for visual recall may raise concerns about privacy and the potential misuse of such technology, as depicted in dystopian science fiction, the researchers believe that the ease of training diffusion models like stable diffusion could be harnessed for the benefit of those who cannot easily capture or share images of their experiences. In 2019, a Reddit user shared a story about mysterious staircases found deep in the woods, seemingly without any logical explanation, and since then, numerous other people have come forward with similar accounts. These stairs are often described as rising from the ground and leading up into the sky, with no other structures or buildings around them, and they are most commonly spotted at night. Reports of these mysterious staircases come from various locations across the United States and even other parts of the world, such as the Philippines and Sweden. Witnesses often describe a sense of unease or dread when approaching the stairs, with some even claiming to have experienced strange phenomena, such as a feeling of being touched by an unseen force or losing track of time. While some believe these staircases could be remnants of long-gone buildings, others speculate about more supernatural explanations, such as alien visitations, portals to other dimensions, or sites of satanic rituals. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the consistency and detail of the reports have led many to believe that there may be some truth to the stories of the mysterious stairs in the woods.